Welcome, friend. Pull up a comfortable chair and wrap your hands around a warm mug of tea. Can you feel that distinct, crisp chill in the autumn air today? The garden is quietly settling down. Our perennial beds are slowly dying back, and the trees are shedding their fiery, golden foliage. It feels like the gardening season is drawing to a gentle close, doesn't it? But I want to share a little secret with you. For the mindful gardener, autumn isn't an ending at all. It is a beautiful, deeply hopeful beginning. Autumn is the season of delayed gratification. While the rest of the world retreats indoors as that first morning frost threatens the landscape, we have a wonderfully vital task to complete before the ground freezes solid. Welcome to the quiet magic of the fall-planted bulb. This is the ultimate plant it and forget it project. Today, we're going to talk about capitalizing on this singular window of opportunity to set the stage for a spectacular, unstoppable spring show in your very own garden. By the end of our time together today, you'll know exactly how to use my absolute favorite technique: lasagna planting. We'll layer bulbs in pots and garden borders to create a continuous, overlapping succession of spring blooms. Imagine a desolate, snow-covered terracotta pot sitting on a freezing patio. As the spring sun finally warms the soil, green shoots pierce the earth. First comes a carpet of brilliant purple, then cheerful yellow trumpets, towering goblets of red, and finally, floating architectural globes. Before we dig our hands into the rich earth and meet our top 5 bulbs, let's talk about the gentle science behind why fall planting is absolutely essential. Spring bulbs are botanically known as geophytes. They possess underground storage organs that hold the energy, nutrients, and even the tiny, pre-formed embryonic flower, just waiting for the right conditions. Think of a bulb as a fully charged botanical battery. When you hold it in your hand in crisp October, all the magic is already tucked safely inside. But these little batteries have a clever built-in safety mechanism. It prevents them from sprouting during a random, unseasonably warm week in November. This mechanism is called vernalization. It simply means they have a physiological need for cold exposure. Most spring-blooming bulbs require about 10 to 14 weeks of sustained cold temperatures, usually between 35 and 45 degrees Fahrenheit, to trigger the biochemical changes necessary for root development and, ultimately, their gorgeous flowering. So, when you plant your bulbs now, they spend the quiet weeks before the deep freeze establishing a robust, anchoring root system in the cool soil. Once the ground freezes hard, they drift into a peaceful state of suspended animation. Then, as the earth slowly warms in the spring, the established roots, the satisfied chilling time, and the rising temperatures send a clear signal. The bulb pushes toward the surface. You do the joyful, heavy lifting now, winter does the chilling, and spring delivers the effortless reward. Now, let's gather our cast of characters. To create a garden that blooms continuously from the moment the snow melts until the precipice of summer, we need a curated selection of bulbs. Let's start with the absolute crown jewels of mid to late spring, tulips. Originating in the rugged, mountainous regions of Central Asia, tulips are incredibly tough. For our layered pots and borders, tulips serve as the foundational, bottom layer, as they are generally the tallest and the latest to bloom among the classics. When selecting tulips, if you want a reliable return year after year, I gently suggest avoiding the highly hybridized, fancy varieties. They are stunning, but often act as annuals, expending all their energy in that first magnificent year. Instead, look for Darwin hybrids. They are prized for massive, brilliant blooms and sturdy stems that bravely withstand blustery spring rainstorms. Or you might try species tulips, which are closer to their wild ancestors. They will naturalize and multiply beautifully for you in the garden over the years. Tulips like to be tucked in deeply, roughly 6 to 8 inches down in the soil. This depth protects them from sudden temperature fluctuations. In our visual time-lapse, tulips provide the dramatic climax. Just as the earlier bulbs begin to gracefully fade and bow out, the strong, thick stems of the tulips rise above them, opening into large, chalice-shaped blooms. Imagine running your fingers over petals that feel like velvet in hues of deep crimson or soft blush. They are truly the grand finale of the spring show. Next, we have the invincible mid-spring trumpets, daffodils. If you have a landscape plagued by wandering deer, tunneling voles, or hungry rabbits, daffodils are your absolute greatest ally. All parts of the narcissus plant contain licorine, a naturally occurring alkaloid that mammals actively avoid because it tastes bitter and is mildly toxic to them. You could plant thousands of daffodils right on the edge of a wild woodland, and the deer will simply walk right past them. It's a wonderfully reassuring feeling. The world of daffodils extends so far beyond the standard yellow trumpet we all know. There are miniature varieties, like tete-a-tete, which are perfectly proportioned for the middle layer of our pots. For sweeping borders, I love ice follies, with its white petals and pale lemon centre. Or perhaps thalia, an elegant variety known for its pure white, nodding blooms and a sweet, delicate fragrance that drifts gently on the spring breeze. Daffodils serve as the cheerful, glowing heart of our continuous spring display. When planting your daffodils, tuck them about 6 inches deep into the earth. They are remarkably forgiving and adaptable to various soil types, provided they aren't left sitting in cold, standing water. In our lasagna pots, they will burst into glorious bloom just as the earliest bulbs are reaching their absolute peak. They provide a bright, contrasting middle story of height and texture, bridging the gap perfectly between the low-growing early bloomers and the tall tulips. Our third essential bulb brings an element of pure architectural wonder to the garden. Let's talk about alliums. These are ornamental onions, but don't worry, they won't make your eyes water. They will, however, make your neighbours stop and stare. Alliums beautifully bridge that awkward transitional gap between the fading of the spring bulbs and the bursting beginning of summer perennials. Because they are members of the onion family, they are completely deer and rodent resistant, just like our daffodils. There is a wholly unique, modern geometry to the allium. For a dramatic statement, Allium giganteum produces massive, majestic, softball-sized purple globes atop towering stems. If you have a smaller space, look for Star of Persia, which offers airy spheres of metallic amethyst stars. In our visual timeline, just as the last tulip petals flutter to the ground, the tight green buds of the alliums swell and burst into perfect spheres. They look exactly like floating purple fireworks suspended peacefully over the waking summer garden. Allium bulbs come in wildly different sizes. Some are as large as a baseball, while others are as small as a delicate glass marble. A good rule of thumb is to plant them 2 to 3 times their height deep. They are incredibly resilient, but like all our spring stars, they absolutely demand good drainage. Wet feet during their winter dormancy is the quickest way to lose them. So, if your soil leans towards heavy clay, Taking the time to mix in some grit or compost is truly an act of love for your future flowers. Now we move to the earliest risers, the snow-piercing harbingers of spring, the crocus. When winter still holds the world in an icy grey grip, the little crocus bravely pushes its way through the snow crust to declare that warmer days are coming. Technically, these are corms rather than true bulbs, but we treat them exactly the same. They are absolutely vital for early season pollinators. Imagine the gentle hum of the very first emerging bumblebees, finally finding a life-saving source of sweet nectar in your garden. The species crocuses, affectionately called Tommies, are incredibly resilient and come in the softest shades of pale lilac to deep, regal purple. Large-flowered Dutch crocuses offer robust, cup-shaped blooms in striking whites and golden yellows. Against the stark white of lingering snow or the dull, sleeping brown of dormant earth, the crocus provides a sudden, shocking carpet of brilliant jewel tones. It's the hopeful opening act of our garden play, and it always manages to take my breath away after a long winter. Because crocus corms are so small, they should be planted quite shallowly, only about 3 to 4 inches deep into the soil. A single crocus is a sweet sight, but they look absolutely spectacular when planted in dense drifts or large, generous sweeps of 50 or more. Don't worry, planting 50 of these tiny corms goes incredibly fast. You can just dig a wide, shallow trench, scatter them like a handful of jewels, and gently pull the soft blanket of soil right back over them. Our final cast member is the lovely Grape Hyacinth, botanically known as muscari. Please don't confuse these with true large spring hyacinths. Muscari are small, vigorous, deeply charming bulbs that produce tight, conical clusters of urn-shaped flowers. Up close, they look exactly like miniature, upside-down bunches of grapes. They multiply readily and happily, eventually forming a thick, grassy carpet of foliage topped with a sea of intense azure cobalt blue. It's a colour so vibrant, it almost seems to glow in the spring sunlight. In our layered planting method, muscari is the ultimate filler and spiller. It blooms harmoniously alongside the early daffodils and early tulips. It creates a deep, rich blue understory that makes the bright yellows and vibrant reds of the taller bulbs pop with incredible contrasting vibrancy. Plant these tiny bulbs 3 to 4 inches deep, right alongside your crocus. Together, they will form the ground cover of your spring container, weaving a beautiful tapestry of life at the base of the taller, reaching stems. Now that we have our wonderful cast of 5 characters, it's time for the director's magic. We're going to dive into the lasagna method. Also known as layered planting, this is a brilliant technique that maximizes limited space by stacking bulbs at different depths in the exact same pot or garden hole. We layer them based on their physical size and their specific bloom time. It's like building a deliciously rich, floral lasagna, layer by careful, hopeful layer. Let's start with the container protocol. If you have a patio, a small balcony, or a welcoming front stoop, a large container lasagna planting is absolutely perfect for you. First, select the right vessel. You cannot use a shallow bowl for this. You need a large, deep container, at least 14 to 18 inches deep and equally as wide. And my friends, it absolutely must have drainage holes. Without drainage, the autumn rains will turn the soil into a freezing swamp, and your bulbs will sadly turn to mush. I prefer thick, frost-proof terracotta, or heavy resin pots that won't crack during the winter's harsh freeze and thaw cycles. To build the foundation, place a piece of broken pottery or a simple paper coffee filter over the drainage holes. This keeps the soil from washing away. Add about 2 inches of coarse, high-quality potting mix at the bottom. Please don't use heavy garden topsoil in pots. It just compacts too much. Mix in a slow-release granular bulb fertilizer or some bone meal right here to feed the roots. Now for the base layer, which holds our late bloomers. Place your tulips and alliums right onto this bottom layer of soil. Plant them pointing upward. The pointy end is the top, and the flat end with the little hairy root plate is the bottom. In a pot, you can pack them in quite tightly, about 1 inch apart. We are going for maximum visual density here. Once they are snugly nestled in, gently cover this bottom layer with 2 to 3 inches of your fluffy potting mix. Next is the middle layer, home to our cheerful mid-spring bloomers. Bring out your lovely daffodils. Place them gently so they sit in the empty spaces between the tips of the tulips directly below them. This thoughtful staggering ensures that the stems of the bottom layer can navigate their way upward toward the sun without hitting a bulb roadblock. It's like a subterranean puzzle fitting perfectly together in the dark. Once the daffodils are placed, cover them with another 2 to 3 inches of potting mix. Finally, we reach the top layer for our early bloomers. Scatter your small bulbs, the crocus and muscari, generously across the surface. Because they are so tiny, they require the least amount of soil depth to feel secure. Top off your beautiful pot with a final 3 inches of soil, pressing down ever so gently with your hands to tuck everyone into bed. Leave about 1 inch of space between the soil line and the rim of the pot to make watering easier. Give the pot a thorough, deep watering to settle the earth. Here is my secret for winter container care. Bulbs in pots do not have the massive insulating warmth of the earth around them. If you live in a very cold climate, leaving the pot completely exposed on a freezing patio might be too harsh. I like to move my potted lasagna into an unheated garage, a simple shed, or a cold frame for the darkest part of winter. They still receive the chilling hours they desperately need, but they are protected from lethal sub-zero wind chills. Just water them very sparingly once a month. But what if you want to bring this layered magic out into the open garden? The lasagna technique translates beautifully to garden borders, creating dense, wild-looking drifts of continuous colour. Instead of digging individual little holes for each bulb, which is honestly back-breaking and often results in a sparse, polka-dot-looking display, I highly advocate for trenching. It saves time, saves your back, and creates a much more natural, sweeping and abundant landscape design. Pick a lovely spot in your garden border and excavate a wide trench or a large, kidney bean-shaped hole to a depth of about 8 inches. Pile the removed soil onto a tarp nearby to keep your grass clean. Take a moment to loosen the soil at the bottom of your trench, mixing in some rich compost and your bulb fertilizer. Remember, spring bulbs demand excellent drainage. If your garden is blessed with heavy clay, amending it now with coarse sand or expanded shale is an absolutely crucial step for success. Now, we simply repeat our lasagna process right in the sweet earth. Place your tulips and large alliums at the bottom, spaced about 3 to 4 inches apart. Shovel 2 to 3 inches of soil over them. Next, lay down your daffodils, offsetting them from the bulbs below. Add another few inches of soil. Finally, scatter your delightful crocus and muscari on this top tier. Gently backfill the rest of the soil from your tarp, pat it down like a cozy blanket, and give the whole area a good, long drink of water. Here is a quick pro tip born from my own garden mishaps over the years. To prevent accidentally digging up your layered masterpiece next spring when you're out doing other chores, gently place a few wooden golf tees in the ground to outline the trench. Or, my absolute favourite method, plant some shallow-rooted autumn pansies directly over the buried bulbs. The pansies give you immediate fall colour, mark the spot perfectly, and the strong bulbs will happily push right past them when spring finally arrives. Now, I want to gently talk about protecting your hard work. The plant it and forget it mentality has one major adversary: our local wildlife. Squirrels, chipmunks, voles, and deer often consider newly planted bulb beds to be a personal, all-you-can-eat buffet. While our daffodils and alliums are wonderfully toxic and deer-resistant, tulips and crocuses are considered woodland candy. Squirrels are notorious for digging up tulip bulbs just days after you've so carefully tucked them into the soil. But please don't worry, we can easily outsmart them. When planting a large border trench, after you've placed the bulbs and completely backfilled the soil, lay a piece of galvanized chicken wire flat across the surface of the earth. Pin it down with landscape staples and cover it with an inch of natural mulch. Squirrels and skunks will attempt to dig, hit that confusing metal wire, and quickly give up. In the spring, the tender bulb shoots will easily slide right through the hexagonal gaps. If underground voles are your primary concern, they tunnel through gardens and eat bulbs from the bottom up. To deter these sneaky visitors, mix a handful of crushed oyster shells, horticultural grit, or coarse pea gravel into the soil directly around your delicious tulip bulbs. Voles possess very sensitive snouts and will generally avoid digging through sharp, abrasive materials. It's a gentle, natural way to say, "Please dine elsewhere," without using harmful chemicals. Also, remember that squirrels are often attracted to the smell of disturbed earth rather than the smell of the bulb itself. When you dig, you expose fresh soil. After planting, you can lightly spray the area with a castor oil-based repellent, or even sprinkle some red cayenne pepper flakes over the surface. And honestly, if a few bulbs are lost to nature, try not to be discouraged. Pests and weather are just part of the gardening journey. We share this beautiful space with nature, and sometimes nature takes a small tax. If you follow these steps in the crisp autumn air, you can retreat indoors, enjoy the cozy warmth of winter, and let nature take the wheel. When March finally arrives, the true magic begins. First, the dark earth cracks and the spiky crocus pushes through the snow crust, opening their vibrant chalices. Hungry, sleepy bees awaken and flock to this early banquet. The gentle buzzing brings such life and movement to a quiet, waking garden, reassuring you that spring has truly arrived. Just as the crocus begin to fade, the muscari sends up its grassy leaves, forming a dense blue river at your feet. Simultaneously, the stout grey-green noses of the daffodils break the surface, unfurling those iconic golden trumpets. A week or two later, the elegant tulips shoot past the daffodils, opening their massive velvet cups. And finally, as the tulips drop their petals, the tall stalks of the alliums burst open into purple globes, seamlessly carrying your garden into the warm summer. It's a breathtaking journey, but I must share the golden rule of post-bloom care with you. To ensure your bulbs return the following year, you must promise me one thing. Do not cut the foliage until it turns completely yellow and dies naturally. Once a bulb finishes flowering, it enters a critical recharging phase. Those somewhat messy green leaves act as vital solar panels, capturing sunlight and sending that energy deep back down into the earth to form next year's beautiful flower. You may absolutely snap off the spent flower head, a practice called deadheading, to prevent the plant from wasting energy making seeds. But you must leave the green stalks and leaves fully intact. If you cut the green foliage down simply because it looks untidy, you are essentially starving the bulb, and it will not have the strength to bloom the following spring. Patience is the gardener's greatest virtue. Let the leaves do their quiet, essential work, and let the lasagna method hide the mess. Gardening is fundamentally an act of immense hope. By digging in the dirt today, you are investing in a vibrant, beautiful future you cannot yet see. But I promise you, it is waiting down there in the dark. Thank you so much for spending this quiet afternoon in the potting shed with me. I'd love to know, what is bravely growing in your garden right now? Tell me in the comments below. Please subscribe for more cozy garden chats, grab your trowel, and until next time, my friends, happy growing.